I don't even know what this episode should be called right now, but it's like when you're talking about certain things like spray caps or paint or whatever, and there's always that person that's like, oh, that paint sucks or those caps suck and you should use these caps. These are better. And they say it like with this, steadfast belief that the product or whatever it is that you're talking about actually sucks. But usually the reality is it just doesn't fit with what they're trying to do. So I don't know. I thought it might be an interesting topic to talk about because I feel like I've seen this my whole life. Like I remember when I was a kid and kids used to argue about which gaming console was better. And the reality is they were just like fucking just two different things. So whichever one you liked better. It's kind of like people arguing about which food is better. And it's like, people's tastes are different. They'll say certain bands suck or certain kinds of music suck. But then there's all these other people that really love that band or that music. So, when they're taking this hard stance on something like that it sucks or it's shitty or it's weak or whatever term you want to use, I always wonder, like, do they really believe that thing sucks and that it's not of good quality? Like when we're talking about, say, spray paint or caps, or do they even realize that it's just doesn't fit with their own personal taste or it doesn't fit with their style? You'll have people that exclusively use like 94 or something like that. And then you'll have another school of people that'll say how terrible 94 is. And so, nobody's right and nobody's wrong. So what I was kind of thinking is the product or tools that you use to get the results you want are the best. So we get that a lot at our graffiti shop, which is the best cap, which is the best paint. And I always try to steer people in the direction of thinking of what is it that they're trying to accomplish? What's their style? What are they painting on? It's not like a one answer. And you have all these people that are saying with such conviction that their personal taste is the way that everybody should be, And the reason I want to talk about it is because, you have a lot of young writers and you got a lot of older writers coming back into the scene. And when people are asking about stuff and with so many options, it's like, I don't know. I feel like it could get kind of overwhelming and we can all be a little bit influenced by what other people say. I think it's pretty natural for, when somebody says, oh, don't even fuck with that. It's terrible. And you'll be like, all right, I won't. And like, you might be missing out on something that's like exactly what you're looking for. So my whole thing, and I've fallen into this trap before too, and it was like, I would always be trying to buy like the perfect markers that got me like exactly the result that I wanted in my black book. And then one day, early on when we first opened our shop, a guy called Rizzo was in there, and we were talking about markers, and he was like, oh, you know what markers I really like are these, the washable kids markers like Crayola and different ones. And I was like, really? Like, I never even thought about it. And we were doing, we have black books out and markers for people to use. And so we would put Sharpies and all this kind of stuff and people would steal them. Like if we ever put a black paint marker out there, the shit was gone. Like the day you put it out there, somebody would take it. So after Rizzo told me that, I was like, oh, maybe I'll just get a bunch of kids markers and put them out there. And so I went on Amazon and I found these, like, I think they're called Rose Art, and you get like 100 fucking colors for, I think it's like $14. And I was like, yeah, they're probably going to be shitty, and I got them and I used them and they're fucking nice, man. Like, they may not hold up in the sun, but like in the black book, it's going to be closed. And so those kind of things, they open up my eyes to different things. And I was studying an art movement called Wabi Sabi in college. And that's about like embracing imperfections and things like that. So it kind of opens your mind up to the possibility that pretty much any tool doesn't suck. I mean, if it gets you the results, like you see people making really great artwork using dead markers because like they get this certain texture and certain kind of like, there's just certain quality that a dead marker gets that a full brand new marker won't get you. So while some people will throw that marker away, other people will make like really crazy dope art out of it. And I had another friend called Evil. I used to paint with him a lot, and he would always have dollar cans in his bag. And I asked him, I'm like, what are you doing with these? You sketching? He's like, no, man, I use them for characters because you get this certain kind of quality with these that you don't get from other paint. And so when you look at dollar cans they're almost objectively lower quality than say our I guess I call them designer paints, like the Montanas and Belton and all that kind of stuff. So when you look at what makes a quality paint, it's like a high pigment, a lower solvent ratio. And then what makes a shitty paint or a lesser quality paint, there's a lot of solvent in there. So like you're holding the can and it's got just as much liquid in there, but it's mostly solvent. And that's what you get with dollar cans. And so you could kind of objectively say that paint is of lower quality. But the reality is, if it gets you the results that you're looking for, it's good. And the same thing with caps. Like everybody, what's crazy is like anybody from the 80s and 90s or even before that can relate that like most of us just used two different caps back then. So like we had like, I don't know if this is the same for every region, but for me and the people that I ran with, primarily we had a thin cap. Most of us called them testers. And then we had a fat cap, which we just called fat caps. And they're basically just, I think they're more known as a New York thin and a New York fat. So you just did everything you needed to do with those. I personally liked the stock caps that Rusto had back then. I liked the stock caps that Rusto has now. So I would use those from time to time, spraying on ridged surfaces and stuff. The stock tips, I liked the look of those. So, even people would say, oh, stock tips suck, like throw those things in the trash. But like they were getting the results that I wanted, so they don't suck. So like if you could use the lowest quality materials, but if it gets you the results you're looking for, then it's good. And so back to the whole, when we had two caps back in the 90s, but now you look at like, and I own a graph shop. So like I'm constantly getting people in. We have like, I don't know, like I think like a selection of like 15 or more different caps, like different fat caps, different thin caps. And I still get people coming in asking for shit that I've never heard of. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like there are so many different caps. And a lot of them, if you put them on next to each other, they're just barely different. But then you have people that are so like adamant about this cap is better than this cap. But like when you use them next to each other, they're hardly different at all. So like the reality is what really comes into it is personal taste. And so when you get the people asking like, what's the best cap to use? I would just simply say like, just take one fat cap and one thin cap and use them and see if you like them, and use it and figure out how it works. And then try another one, the next piece, do a whole piece with it and see what fits your own personal taste. And don't be afraid to try just any kind of products out there. Cause sometimes you'll be surprised. I don't really look for this kind of stuff anymore, but I remember in the 90s, GK and I were painting a lot, and I'm not going to get too far into it, but outside of the other ways of acquiring paint, you'd have to buy some from time to time. So we would just kind of look around and just try any kind of paint we would find. And at one point we found this hardware store, and they had this whole rack of paint that were $1 a can. And there were all these just weird different brands that we've never heard of. And so we bought like maybe $20 worth of it and went painting. And it turned out all of them actually worked pretty good. And, they weren't as good as say like the Krylon was back then or the Rusto was. But for $1 a can, it was cool. And we ended up going back, and I know I spent like $100 on them. I don't remember what he did, and I ended up using like, people were giving me a hard time because I was always using these, like, I was doing these like light green fills and orange outlines. I remember Tulse was giving me a bunch of shit one time, like, when are you going to do different colors? And I'm like, dude, I got like 50 cans of each of these, I'm going to use this. So the point is kind of, those tools worked for me, so while some people may say that sucked, it didn't suck. Like I got a lot of good mileage out of that stuff. I guess the point is to kind of recommend just people being a little more open-minded about what tools work best for them and not really listen to what other people are saying, about what you should and shouldn't use. I think that's a good thing to consider just in general, because you're going to have a lot of people telling you what you should and shouldn't do, but that's your choice to make. So, I mean, people are going to say certain styles suck and certain colors suck. And I don't even know if people say sucks anymore. I feel like it's an old term. Maybe they call it weak ass or whatever. I have no idea, but people are going to have their opinions. And I think your opinion is the only one that really matters. So when you're out there and you're choosing your tools and you're choosing your styles and you're trying to make those decisions on what you want to do, just don't let anybody tell you different. do the shit that you want to do. If it's, you know, we talk mostly about tools, but like it does come into play with styles and like, you know, different kinds of line quality and how you do your lines and all that stuff. And there's always going to be people that talk shit. And I get it all the time. I do a lot of content on social media, and I'll put some, try to put these little educational things out on our Instagram. And most of the time there's going to be one person that chimes in with some negative bullshit. And, I'm way better at not giving a fuck about that stuff. But at the same time, it's a little bit, I do think about how it affects other people, and especially like younger writers when they're a little more influenced by comments and things like that. So I guess mainly a message to the newer people, younger or older, but just people getting into the scene or coming back into the scene. The reality of where we're at with graffiti, there's just an endless amount of choices, you know, from caps to paint to styles to all this kind of stuff. And I would just encourage people, and it works for me, to just use whatever the fuck you want to use and make your own choice on what works best for you. Whether it's dollar cans, whether it's fucking Belton or 94, whatever it is, there's always going to be somebody that has a favorite and thinks that it should be everybody's favorite also. And that's just not the case. You know, the product that works best for you, the style that works best for you, that is the best. So I think that's going to do it for me. As always, I'm going to cut in something from Cub. This doesn't seem like a topic we ever discussed, but I'll try to put in something. But I'll put in something anyway, because, you know, he's always going to be a part of this. And on that note, we miss him very much. And thank you all for supporting the podcast. As we say pretty frequently, like, please share and review, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. It really helps us. If you find any value, we would appreciate it. So, all right. Hope you're all doing well. And as Cub would say, stay up.
How can you just zone in and focus on this one particular thing that maybe we've been neglecting and something that's been shelved? Use this time. Reach out to some crew. Plan some summertime, some spring collabs and some productions and some, you know, once the smoke clears and all the dust settles in a sense, you know, use this to our advantage like you had mentioned before. Maybe it's time to dig into some new style. And practice a whole new way of looking at our letters. Flip your shit upside down. Sketch your letters upside down. Sketch your letters sideways. Fucking flip that shit. You know, do them backwards like many have before, and I'll probably already have. Come out with some new color schemes. Try some colors you never would have fucked with before and make it work. You know? I mean, the list goes on and on, really. The first thing I would do, what I have been doing, is digging into my arsenal, my supplies, and all the things that have been collecting dust. And those are probably the things that you should be fucking with the most. Like anything else, it's usually the things that we don't want to look at or haven't seen for a long time that we probably need to look at and fuck with the most. In ourselves and on the outside things. So, yeah, we use this time. All the things we walk past on our way out the door every day to grind or to pursue our dreams, our passions, and support our families, whatever that might be. Those things you're passing by on your shelf right now or that are in your closet, like pull that shit out tonight. Put it on the table so you see it and maybe dig into that a little bit. Take care of yourself and your health. Work out. These are just suggestions, but it's working for me. Yeah. It might work for you.
All right, good.
Appreciate each and every one of you guys who are supporting the cause and continue to spread the love. And, yeah, stay up.